Imagine this. One day, a heavy metal door closes behind you. Loud, cold, final. And in that moment, you realize something very quickly. The rules of normal life may not work here anymore. Nobody gives you a guide. Nobody explains how to speak, where to look, who to sit with, who to avoid, or when a simple request stops being just a request and becomes someone else having power over you. You are suddenly inside a world where every small action means something. Silence can protect you. One wrong word can create problems. And respect is not just a nice idea. It becomes a way to survive. Prison is not only walls, cells, bars, and locked doors. It is its own society, with its own hierarchy, its own unwritten rules, its own psychology, and its own levels. Not official levels, not levels written on paper, but invisible stages a person slowly goes through. From a confused newcomer who understands nothing, to someone people recognize, respect, and listen to. This is not a story about crime. This is not a romantic version of prison. And this is not an instruction. This is a story about fear, adaptation, reputation, boundaries, and how a person can change when he lives inside a closed system for too long. Here are the 12 levels of life in prison. Level 1, the newcomer. The first level is confusion. A new prisoner walks in and quickly understands one thing. He knows nothing. The sounds feel too loud. The doors close too hard. The voices feel too close. The faces around him are impossible to read. He does not know where to stand, who to look at, when to speak, or when to stay quiet. And the worst part is this. Everyone else seems to understand the game already. They know where to sit, who talks to whom, which people should not be bothered, and which small mistake can follow you for a long time. At this level, the biggest danger is not someone else's strength. The biggest danger is not knowing. Level 2, the quiet observer. After the first shock, he stops trying to understand everything at once. He becomes quieter. He talks less, watches more, listens more. He notices who acts confident, who talks too much, who looks nervous, who stays calm under pressure, and who gets respect without raising their voice. At this level, silence becomes protection, because every reaction shows something. Fear shows weakness. Anger shows that you can be controlled. Panic shows that you are not ready yet. So he learns to control his face. Inside, he may be scared, but outside, he tries to look calm. He is still new, still weak, but he is no longer completely blind. He starts to see the system. Level 3, the rule learner. The third level is learning the invisible rules. There are official rules. Staff can explain them. They can be written down. But there are also rules between people. Do not touch what is not yours. Do not ask questions that are too personal. Do not join a conversation where you were not invited. Do not promise something you cannot do. Do not pretend to be more important than you are. The prisoner begins to understand that respect is not just good behavior. It is a survival tool. Sometimes a calm voice matters more than strength. Sometimes a short apology can stop a bigger problem. Sometimes staying quiet is smarter than proving you are right. At this level, he learns something important. Prison punishes arrogance quickly, sometimes faster than weakness. Level 4, the routine builder. When fear becomes familiar, a new enemy appears. Time. Days begin to repeat. The same walls, the same sounds, the same faces, the same food, the same conversations. At first, a person waits for something to change. Then he realizes that nothing may change for a very long time. So he needs routine. He wakes up at the same time, cleans his space, exercises, reads, writes letters, counts the days, waits. Routine gives him a small feeling of control, almost invisible, but still control, because when a day has no structure, it can feel endless. At this level, survival is not a dramatic fight. It is quietly making it to the evening without breaking down. Level 5, the social mapper. By the 5th level, he starts to see more. He understands that people inside are not just standing next to each other. They are connected. There are groups, friendships, old conflicts, quiet alliances, people with reputation. people without protection. He begins to build a map in his head. Who eats with whom? Who does not talk to whom? Who gives advice? Who owes something? Who avoids eye contact? He learns that influence is often invisible. The loudest person is not always the leader. The quietest person is not always safe. The most noticeable person is not always the most important. At this level, he stops seeing a crowd. He begins to see a system. Level 6. The Boundary Keeper. Now he understands that survival needs boundaries. Not only physical boundaries, personal ones too. He does not borrow things carelessly. He does not promise what he cannot return. He does not tell too much about himself. He does not join every conversation. He does not let himself get pulled into other people's conflicts. He learns to say no, calmly, without challenging anyone, without insulting anyone, without trying to prove strength. This is harder than it sounds, because in prison, even a small exchange can become a connection, and a connection can become an obligation. Today you take something small. Tomorrow someone expects something back. At this level, he stops just reacting. He starts choosing where to step in, who to talk to, what to avoid, when to help, and when to stay away. He is not freer, but he is more stable. Level 7, the useful person. The 7th level begins when a person becomes useful. Not dangerous, not loud, not someone trying to look scary. Useful. Maybe he understands paperwork. Maybe he can explain how things work. Maybe he listens well. Maybe he remembers details. Maybe he can calm people down. Usefulness creates value. People stop seeing him as only the new guy. They see him as someone with a role. He is still not a leader. He does not control people. He has no real power. But he is no longer invisible. People come to him. People notice him. His presence starts to mean something. And in prison, being useful can sometimes be safer than trying to look frightening. Because fear creates resistance. Usefulness gives you a place. Level 8. The Trusted Contact. At the 8th level, trust appears. But not the kind of trust people know outside. Outside, trust can be warm and emotional. Inside, it is different, careful, slow, incomplete. A few people begin to speak more honestly with him. Someone asks his opinion. Someone sits near him without tension. Someone warns him about a possible problem. But trust here is always a test. Can he keep quiet? Can he stay calm under pressure? Can he avoid using another person's weakness? Can he avoid making conflict bigger? At this level, he gains social stability. He begins to understand who can support him, who only says nice words, who disappears when trouble starts, and who is actually there. Life is not easy, but it becomes clearer. Level 9, the Reputation Holder. At the 9th level, his name works even when he is not in the room. People have an opinion about him. Quiet, reliable, careful, useful, not easy to control. Reputation becomes armor. It does not protect him from everything, but it makes life more predictable. Newcomers may ask him questions. More experienced prisoners may recognize his place. Even people who do not like him understand who he is. But reputation has a dangerous side. It is built slowly, and it breaks quickly. One foolish reaction, one unnecessary conflict, one careless phrase. Months of careful behavior can lose their value. That is why he becomes even more controlled. Now he is responsible not only for his words. He is responsible for the image he has created. Level 10. The Connector. The 10th level is influence through connections. The prisoner knows people from different circles. He understands who can talk to whom, who cannot stand whom, who can calm a situation, who should not sit together, who listens to calm words, and who only reacts to pressure. He does not need to give orders. His strength is different. He understands the network. Sometimes he can explain a misunderstanding before it becomes conflict. Sometimes he can pass information quietly. Sometimes he can reduce tension because he knows how to speak to different people. This kind of influence is quiet. It is not about shouting, giving orders, or showing strength. It is about understanding how the system breathes. But connections are not only protection. They can also pull you into other people's problems. So at this level, he must be careful. Influence is not only opportunity. It is responsibility. Level 11, the system builder. At the 11th level, he has built his own survival system. He has routine, reputation, boundaries, a useful role, a few trusted contacts, and a clear understanding of the world around him. He knows when to speak, when to stay quiet, when to leave, when to stay invisible, when to help, and when not to get involved. His mind no longer lives in constant panic. He has adapted. First, that looks like victory, but adaptation has a price. The better a person adjusts to a closed world, the farther the outside world starts to feel. Normal life feels strange. Freedom feels distant. Simple conversations feel unfamiliar. Calmness feels suspicious. Prison logic becomes automatic. At this level, survival starts becoming identity. He is no longer just living inside the system. Part of the system is now living inside him. Level 12, the influential prisoner. The final level is not freedom. It is influence. The prisoner becomes someone others watch. Newcomers look at him the way he once looked at experienced prisoners. People listen when he speaks. His opinion can calm a room or make the atmosphere heavier. He has status, connections, a role, his own survival strategy. He has not just adapted. He has become part of the inner order. But this is the trap. The more influence he has inside prison, the harder it becomes to remember who he was before it. He has mastered a world that was never supposed to become home. And that is the deepest irony. In prison, becoming influential does not mean winning. It means learning how to survive inside a cage so well that the cage starts to feel normal. And that is no longer just adaptation. That is a person changing from the inside. Final. So these are the 12 levels of life in prison. Not levels of crime. Not levels of violence. Not a romantic version of a closed world. But levels of adaptation. First, confusion. Then observation. Then rules. Then routine. Then a social map. Then boundaries. Then usefulness. Then trust. Then reputation. Then connections. Then a personal system. And finally, influence. But the real question is not how high a person can rise inside prison. The real question is, how much of himself does he lose while learning how to survive? Because sometimes the scariest part of a closed world is not the walls, not the doors, not the bars. It is the moment when a person starts living as if those walls were always normal. Any closed system can change a person faster than he can notice it himself. So yes, adapting can be necessary. But the harder question is this: where does adaptation end and losing yourself begin? This matters not because prison should look interesting or attractive. Not at all. It matters because prison shows an extreme example of how an environment can rewrite behavior, thinking, and identity. The bigger question is not only about prison. It is about any harsh system. How do you survive inside it without letting it fully become part of you? If the story made you think about rules, hierarchy, fear, or how much an environment can change a person, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. And if you want to support more deep videos like this, leave a like and write in the comments. Which level do you think is more dangerous? The first level, when a person understands nothing. Or the last level, when he has become too used to the system. Your support really means a lot. I already have more videos prepared. Different topics, but the same depth. See you in the next video.